What if I told you there was a moment in ancient history when the entire world spoke one language, one voice, one mind, and decided to build a tower to heaven? But what they didn't expect was that heaven might respond. This is not just the story of a tower. This is the story of what happens when humanity overreaches, and how a divine interruption shattered civilization forever. Long ago, before the rise of nations, before borders or even languages, humanity was unified. One people, one speech, one dream. After the flood, survivors multiplied and spread. But a group of them settled in a plain called Shinar, and they had a vision. Let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered. That tower? It wasn't just a monument. It was a symbol, a rebellion in brick and stone. Mankind reaching upward, not in worship, but in defiance. They weren't asking God for help. They were trying to replace him. The place would later be known as Babylon, a name that echoes through the Bible as a symbol of pride, idolatry, and spiritual confusion. And the tower? Many believe it was a ziggurat, a step pyramid structure used for pagan worship, each level climbing closer to the skies. It wasn't just architecture. It was ambition turned into theology, an attempt to force the divine down to earth, on human terms. But here's the twist. They weren't just afraid of being forgotten. They were terrified of being scattered. Ironically, that's exactly what would happen next. The story says that God came down to see the city and the tower. But think about that phrase, God came down. The irony is sharp. No matter how high humans climbed, they were still nowhere near heaven. And when God saw what they were doing, he didn't destroy the tower. He did something more poetic. He confused their language. Suddenly, people who had worked side by side could no longer understand each other. Architects couldn't speak to masons. Families couldn't even speak to each other. The project crumbled, not because of an earthquake or fire, but because communication broke down. Language, the very tool that united them, was turned into the force that divided them. From there, humanity scattered, just as they feared. But here's the deeper layer. This isn't just a story about a tower. It's about how every civilization that builds itself on pride and self-glory eventually collapses from within. The fallout of Babel wasn't just linguistic. It was cultural, spiritual, generational. And to this day, we still see it. Every empire that rose in defiance, Babylon, Rome, even modern powers, follow the same pattern. Unify, rise, defy, scatter, fall. It's almost like Babel was the template. What's eerie is that God didn't punish them with fire or plague. He simply gave them what they feared most, separation. They wanted unity without him, so he gave them disunity without him. It's almost like God was saying, if you try to build a kingdom without me, you'll build confusion instead. And that's the meaning of the word Babel. It sounds like the Hebrew word for confusion. The tower became a monument to misunderstanding. You might be wondering, did the Tower of Babel really happen? Where is it today? Archaeologists have debated it for years. Ruins in Iraq, inscriptions in ancient Babylon, all hint at ziggurats eerily similar to the one described in Genesis. But here's the more haunting question. Has Babel really ended? Because today, we live in a world full of information, but divided by perspective. One planet, billions of voices, shouting, not listening. Still building towers, just digital ones, and maybe still chasing unity without God. The Tower of Babel wasn't just a story about the past. It was a blueprint of human failure and divine mercy. Because instead of wiping them out, God scattered them. He gave them the chance to start over, to search for meaning again. And one day, generations later, something happened in the city of Jerusalem. where people of every language heard the same message in their own tongue. But that is another story. Subscribe if this story gave you a whole new way of looking at the Bible. And remember, sometimes the greatest fall isn't from the sky. It's when we forget who we were meant to reach for.